Melissa, thank you so much for joining us on the Sober Side podcast. I want to let you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and how you're involved in the field right now, how you're helping those who are going through substance abuse or mental health.
My name is Melissa. I'm 43 years old, and I work as a primary counselor in El Monte, California. Yeah.
Interesting. And so you're working at like a substance abuse facility, like a rehab facility at the moment?
It's a men's facility.
It's yes. A men's facility. Okay. And like what kind of people do you guys, usually help out?
People with mental health, which my heart is there. And, just it's in the hood, it's
okay.
Rough men, just trying to make it out.
Mm. And why specifically have you chosen to be working with this particular demographic of people?
Originally, I wanted to do women and children. Never did I think I was going to be at a men's home,
Mm-hmm.
But I love it. Something about these men, just the spark of hope that there is in their eyes, just motivates me to continue to do what I do.
Yeah. And I mean, how long have you been doing this for?
I just started. So I graduated maybe less than a year in December. I got hired at this program. And I said, I was actually working all the way over here in Winnetka.
Okay.
And I thought transportation was too much. I need to get a closer job. So I took it closer to home. Yeah.
Interesting. And so you kind of got into it because it was close to home. It was convenient. Usually like the most interesting things happen when, you're like least expecting it and you're kind of like, you already have like bad presumptions about it, I guess. But do you think that, men nowadays with, mental health and substance abuse experience the same feeling of, brokenness and hopelessness that women do? Do you think that there's similarities in the way that men and women experience, the harmful things that come with addiction?
I think mental health is the same. I want to say my son suffers from schizophrenia, so I'm well aware, of his psychotic moments, and just me trying to be a mom and be helpful to him, so he won't. So I've learned a lot, from a family coming where Mexican tradition, we don't believe in mental health. Like we don't believe I didn't even know anything about it until, firsthand my son, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and we just thought he's getting high. He is using, and we couldn't figure it out until, he got diagnosed. And then I started researching and understanding what mental health really is. And yeah.
Interesting. And so those, schizophrenic behaviors began later on in his life, or was it kind of like apparent from childhood?
I had him at a young age, and I didn't know really much about the family. Our side of the family, I think we didn't know anything about it. But then later on, as I did research, I understood that his whole side of the family is bipolar, schizophrenic, and I didn't know anything about it. So I started doing research and just wanting to better his life, because I couldn't even imagine him going through all of this. And it's just so chaotic, confused. And he used drugs too. So it was like a dual attack.
Do you think that people who struggle with these mental health issues are more susceptible to substance abuse? Based on what you see.
Yesterday, I did a training at work, and they allowed us to hear an audio. It's not going to be accurate, but similar to what a person who deals with schizophrenia. And it was horrible. I couldn't take it. I cried, and I said to myself, how horrible can this be on a day to day? If you're happy, you hear voices. If you're sad, you hear voices. What a torment, you know? And
Right.
I couldn't. I couldn't be able to do something or just, how do you as a mother guide your son through that?
Yeah, I think one of the most challenging things in life is, being responsible for a child who's battling with these things. Going back to your work, so you're working with people who suffer from mental health, are from impoverished neighborhoods, right? What is a common theme that you see amongst these people that is a key part of why they are in addiction?
I want to say they have no hope. They don't have nothing to look forward to. They have numerous times, done the same cycle, which is drugs, prison, program, release, get high, and continue the cycle. I think for me, it was the same cycle. I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't imagine me wearing a dress, going to work. I couldn't see it.
Interesting. I want to get into your background. Part of, let's go back to childhood. Where did you grow up? How was your childhood like? And then, take me on the train of your life.
Interesting story. I grew up in El Monte. So it's basically, I grew up there and I came right back. Actually, the same apartment where I was living at, that's where the home is at. My childhood was pretty traumatic, I guess you can say. Poverty. My dad used to work at the swap meet, and my toys were always like from the trash, He would recycle, and those were my toys. As a kid, I grew up like just loving life, just being there with my parents, and, until I was like 9, my uncle moved in, and he molested me from the age of 9 to 12. He did a lot of things that any kid should go through.
Sorry to hear that.
And I didn't understand, And as I tell my daughter, I can't imagine something like that happening to you, because I didn't say nothing. Like, I stood quiet. Like, what normal kid would be able to not say one single word about that? But I understand now as an adult, like, why I hide so much, why I'm not open about anything. And if I think it's wrong, I won't say nothing, It has affected me. I believe that by me not saying anything and just keeping it to myself, thinking that I could deal with it, all these controlling issues started coming. I had to be in control of every situation. I became promiscuous. I had my son, my oldest son, at a really young age. Prior to my uncle, doing this, another uncle or cousin from Mexico comes and he does the same thing. So this was from my dad's side, and then the other one was from my mom's side of the family. It was just horrible, I had my son at a really young age, and it was the best thing that could ever happen to me, But I want to say that I was a good mom. But I wasn't, I was too young. I was a kid having a kid.
Can I ask how old were you exactly?
I was 14. Actually, in my quinceañera, I was already 3 months pregnant. And to my dad, my dad and my mom, that was like a slap in the face. Like, how dare you do that? I hid my whole pregnancy. So I was in freshman year. I was already pregnant. Nobody knew, so everything was hush hush, My kids are 3 years apart. I have 4 kids, and then I had my daughter, and at this point, I'm already in my full addiction, I believe, because of what my uncle did to me. And I got into a really bad relationship, and it was hell. It was hell. Like, I just rebelled so much. I did the unthinkable. I was horrible to this person.
And what was your drug of choice at the time?
Meth.
Meth. Okay. And going back to El Monte, that's in California, right? My geography isn't the best.
It's
apologies. It's close to LA, is it?
It's close to West Covina, Monrovia.
Okay, gotcha. And okay, there's a lot to unwrap here. What was your first experience with meth? Was it meth that was the first thing that led you to that, or was there something else?
No, it was just meth.
Okay. And how did that happen?
My neighbor, which was my best friend at the time, she comes over and she introduces me to this substance that I fell in love with.
And at what age was this?
Probably 15, 16 years old. 15, 16 years old.
And was it like common in your neighborhood? Was this something that like all the kids were doing, or?
I didn't know anything about this substance, meth, anything. Back in the day, where were we going to get a pipe, or anything to smoke it in? So she had aluminum foil, and we did chase the dragon. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's foil, and I knew that day that was going to be bad.
What made you say yes? Like, was it the curiosity? What was it?
It wasn't even peer pressure, It was just, I'm down. I'll do it.
And before this, like, would you drink? Would you smoke weed, things like that?
No. My parents were alcoholics, and I would see my parents drinking all the time. So I wasn't getting the attention, I guess, the love from mom, dad, they were always busy drinking. But I said to myself, I want to feel the way my dad feels. Because he would get so drunk to the point where no cares in the world. And I'm like, I want to feel that. So I remember getting a big cup and filling it up with his black velvet whiskey and drinking it, the whole cup. And I remember saying, man, this is the greatest feeling.
At what age was this?
15, 16 is when, things just, I wanted to know, I wanted to feel. I would see my parents and I would see, like, what is coming in between me and you? Alcohol. I want to try it. I want to do it. I want to feel the way you feel. And I think that's when I started just drinking, and then it was easy for me to do meth because it was there. Right.
That's why I asked, what came before it, because, going just straight to meth is a pretty big leap,
Right.
So how was your friend group before the meth and then after? Like what was the most drastic change in, experiencing technically part of your childhood, I would say, right? 15, you're still a child, right? For the most part.
I want to say, in my sophomore year, was it? No, junior high still. It's just the way it happened. It was just so embarrassing, a football player, one of the girls dared a football player to, she thought it was funny to grab me from behind, We're at the library and he does it, I didn't think anything at the time, I just laughed it off, but like when the principal sat down and was like, are you okay? And I saw so much attention towards me, I was like, what's going on? That's when I realized, what my uncle is doing to me is not okay. I felt the same feelings, when he did that. And the principal's telling me, like, that's sexual harassment. We're going to expel him. And I was like, no, you don't have to. It's okay, me still trying to protect him. But once I understood the seriousness of it, I'm like, I related those feelings with my uncle and what he had done or what he was doing at the time.
Okay. And it took this incident to like unravel the extremity of it. So, meth use begins around 15, 16. How long does that last? Like, where does that train take you?
Since 1999 till 2011 on a crazy roller coaster. Mm-hmm. I think at that point, I just didn't care. I was into like just self-sabotaging. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel like I was worth living.
So the use was a way to kind of push down the feelings that you were having inside.
But at the time, I don't understand the feelings, I don't understand. At this point, I just think I'm a mom. I'm unable to be a mom to my kids because I love this so much more. And the truth is that I put meth before anything and anybody.
And where did that road take you? Like, what was life like, in that situation?
That's when I started, my criminal activity. I know I don't look at it like it right now, but my criminal mentality, just doing things that you shouldn't be doing. One, you're a mom, but just doing fraud, doing wanting to get over on men, because I'm hurt. I hate men. So at this point, I'm like, I have this vendetta, I guess you could say, against men.
And how are you pursuing that vendetta?
I just want to hurt you guys. Not you personally.
Okay, thanks.
I just wanted to hurt because I knew that I was going to get hurt.
Okay. And like physical hurt, like, emotional hurt, like how are you hurting these men?
I am emotionally, physically, whatever I can take from you, I was taking it. It didn't matter what it was. I didn't care if you had kids, you had a wife. I was taking it. I just felt like I needed to. And there's been some really nice guys in my life, and it didn't matter.
And are you currently married or are you in a relationship?
I'm married. But we're gonna get a divorce.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry to hear about that.
It's okay.
So how do you come out of this? So you're battling with all these things. What was the turning point?
The turning point was 5 prison terms, 2 programs, 4 kids. I was just done. I don't even think I knew I was done until, my last prison term, I ended up getting arrested. And my kids are with me. It was a horrific, I'm getting arrested at a Target and my kids are watching me getting arrested and they're taking me and my sister has to come from La Puente to Chino in less than 15 minutes. How she made it, God bless her heart.
Is that
she
far?
made it. It's probably like 30 minutes on a Friday traffic.
Okay.
And I'm with my husband. And because he's with me, guilty by association, they arrest him too. It was horrible. It was horrible. I'm then, going to prison, like looking at 10 years. And I'm just like, this is going to be my life. This is it.
Yeah.
I want to help this lady. Her name's Jerry. She's crying, and I'm wanting to help her because at the county, there was no walls for the showers.
So, wait, what's her name again? Sorry. Jerry. And she's like a cellmate. She's like in the holding cell.
I didn't know her. We hadn't even met. But that right there was, my heart just felt for her because she's crying in the shower and I want to help her. Basically, I just want to say, hey.
She was a fellow prisoner, basically.
She's there, yes.
Okay. And she was crying in the shower. You saw her.
Yes. And I'm like, girl, don't do that. But I offered to hold the towel for her, and at this point, I believe that it was just a divine intervention because that lady helped me, with so much. And she didn't even do nothing, just her belief drew me to her.
What kind of belief did she have?
She believed in God.
And how did she define what God is?
He's a God of a second chance, I couldn't understand that. I didn't understand that. My parents are Catholics. They went to church, maybe Easter, Christmas, and, I always went to church because I knew I was going to get candy apples, which were my favorite. So I would go to church. But never did I have a relationship. I didn't know of God. I didn't know. Every time I would read the Bible, I would go to sleep, It wasn't important in my life. But this lady made such a big impact in my life. I'm fighting 10 years and I'm just like, this is what my life is going to become, I loved it. I loved prison. I loved the whole dysfunction, the whole chaos,
Is it like there's a Netflix show, right? Like
it's
Orange.
Exactly like it.
Really? Orange
Yes.
is the black or
Exactly.
Orange is the new black. Interesting.
Horrible.
Really? But I feel like women prison is probably like more chill, right? You guys like support each other and things like that while the men are like...
Oh, yeah. We support each other.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay. Is there like rivals and stuff? Like, how is the female prison life like? The only thing I've seen about it is the show. So
the only thing you have to worry about is not going out with somebody else's girl. You're good.
Or else it's
do or die.
Wow. I could imagine the level of drama in there is probably boiling.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. And so Jerry, she's in there with you. We don't want to get into too much about Jerry, but what was so pivotal about her message that drew you towards the right direction, right? Your turning point.
Aside from me, fighting 10 years, I'm just like, man, I kind of like basically gave up at that point.
And how long were you in before you met her?
Right away.
Right
it was
away.
Like, we picked up right away. And I just saw her crying, and I'm like, oh my God, this lady is in a top bunk.
She's an old lady. I'm imagining her as an old lady.
She is older. Yeah, she's older. Wisdom. I'll call it wisdom.
Shout out, Jerry.
Jerry. Cool. But she was crying on the top bunk and she has this book in front of her. And I could see she's crying because she's like wiping her tears. And I'm like, oh God, let me go check to see what's going on, And I'm like, hey, Jerry, you all right? She goes, oh yes, honey, these are tears of joy. And I'm like, but you're crying. She goes, I'm happy. I did not understand what she said, what she meant by that. I'm like, she needs her meds, She's cray-cray. I don't know. Did you take your meds, lady? But But she's reading this book, and I'm asking her, what is it that you're reading? She goes, it's the Bible. Well, what about the Bible? Why are you crying and you're happy? That's so confusing to me. And she said, honey, this is like the best book that you could ever read. This is what saved my life. This is what's saving my kids. And I was like, that book, And she said, yeah. And I told her, well, Jerry, I'll let you to it. I'm not going to interrupt what's going on right here, right now, but just wanted to check on you. And little by little, like each day, I don't know if she did it like knowingly, but she just shared a little bit. And what she shared to me just drew me to her. I guess it was how she treated me. She would call me honey, that affection. And
I'm imagining her like a nice, like Southern lady. Like, was she Southern?
She is. She's so nice. The nicest lady ever.
That's what I imagine angels to be like. Have Southern accents. I don't know why, but that's amazing. And so that is what created the change that you are still living today.
No, it wasn't. She tells me, hun, I come with her and I'm having trouble. I'm like, I'm going to be here 10 years. And she tells me, hun, have you ever asked God, have you ever prayed to him? And I'm like, no. For what? She's like, you should try him, try my God. He will never return void. And I'm like, okay, like what is a prayer going to do for me, a drug addict, who's been addicted for 10 years? Has given everything up for meth. Like, there's no hope for people like me. There's not one prayer that I could say that could change my life.
And what was your drug use like once you entered prison? Was it something that was readily accessible, or like you quit at that point?
I never quit once I started.
So there was access to it inside? Everywhere.
Absolutely. There's more drugs in there than... Actually, I took drugs inside. I had drugs.
Okay. And so, okay, she's telling you to pray, and you're thinking about it. And what gets you to do it, actually?
May 9th, she tells me this. And I'm like, no, Jerry, that's not for me. She goes, hon, just try it. Tell him what you need. He already knows. He wants you to say it. And I'm just like brushing her off. I'm in my bunk. I don't know what it was. And I was like, this was my prayer. I said, God, you know what kind of addiction I have. You know. I just want to be a mom, I want to be able to read a story, a book to my kids, to tuck them in at night. Allow me to be that mom. If you're real and you help me through this, I will do the best that I can to win any type of souls for your kingdom. That was May 9th. May 10th, Mother's Day, I find out I'm pregnant. And I said, no way.
It's how many days after was it? Do we have tissues, by the way, on?
I'm okay.
Do we?
It's okay. So I find out I'm pregnant on Mother's Day. Well, Mexican Mother's Day, which is May 10th.
May 10th. Okay, so 5 days after.
No.
No, May 9th, the next day.
Yes.
The next day. Oh, my God. Wow. And how did you interpret that? Especially with that prayer.
I was angry because I'm looking at 10 years. And I said, God, how, Jerry, you made me pray to this God, and now I'm looking at 10 years. Now I'm pregnant. I'm never going to see my kid. Same story, different cycle. And I'm confused. And she's just like smiling, and I'm like, I don't get why you're smiling. She goes, there's always going to be a good reason for why he does what he does.
Amen.
And yeah, they got me a lawyer, and I got out maybe 3 days before my daughter turned 1.
Okay.
And
that's a pretty good deal.
That's a pretty good deal. Well, actually, it was an N number, a narcotics number. And I had to go to classes and present myself in front of the committee and tell them why I am a suitable female to be out there in the streets again.
And so how did the meth use stop? Because I know that you had access to it in prison. You were using it. You pray, you find out you're going to be a mom. What happens? How do we get rid of the meth?
I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant, and I just changed everything.
And how was that transition? Like, was it easy?
I did not have a craving. I didn't have any withdrawals. I just was pregnant. And I want to say healed. I don't know. It just happened.
Praise God.
And that went for 10 years. I held on to God's hand and never turned back. I always thought, like, man, when I get married, who's going to go to my wedding? Everybody that I know gets high, drinks. And my thoughts were, I want to have a wedding and not have alcohol or drugs. Like that in our family was never would that happen.
Yeah, I can imagine.
My circle was tight though, maybe like 40 people went to the wedding, And
it was a sober wedding. Sober side wedding. Okay.
Yeah. No alcohol, no drugs.
That's amazing. So, you get out. You've been over a year, right? Like a year and 9 months clean at this point. So almost 2 years clean at this point. You get out. How do you continue from there?
Inside of prison, I started this routine, and I knew that I needed to be around people. So in there, on Wednesdays, I would go to their church. Fridays, go to their Bible study. Sundays, go to church, Little did I know that I want to say God was just aligning me and preparing me to when I get out. Because when I got out, Wednesdays was church, Fridays was Bible study, and Sundays was church. I needed that to stay connected, fellowship with people, just be around people, positive people, people who had goals, people who had good intentions, For a really long time, I just hung around with people who didn't care, drug addicts. People who wanted to come up, people who wanted to harm somebody else. No good intentions, So I remember for a really, really long time, like even though coming out, I would walk in the street like with my husband, and I'd be looking into cars. And I would tell him, when is this going to go away, Is this ever going to go away? Or am I always going to be like looking at cars or just embarrassing,
What cars have the best stuff in them?
I have no idea. I'm kidding. Anything that was open, I would go into it, And it's like, Melissa, why? You had money, you had drugs. It's just the obsession of wanting to feel the adrenaline, the rush, the high of, I'm getting over on you, And now that I think about it, it's like, it's horrible.
If you were to attribute one factor, right? It's obviously more than one, but the main factor that, got you out of a state which you didn't think you can get out of, what would you name that got you out of that situation? How, like, I don't know if I'm wording this right, but like, what would you say was like the kryptonite that killed your addiction? Kryptonite is not the right word, but
Kryptonite. What is Vincent saying? Let me see. The sober side. I want to say love. I never had it. And somebody once told me, like, love always wins, you know? And I feel that little bit of love that I got made me want to change.
And where was this source of love that changed you?
Just God, you know?
What advice would you give to somebody who's searching for answers, who's searching for God, right? You know, everybody has their own interpretation of it, but this is my belief, either everyone's wrong and we're all screwed, or somebody's got to be right. So, you know, why would you say that, you know, Jesus is the answer to a lot of questions people are looking for?
I want to say that I want to believe that everything's good out there, you know, but it's not. There's evil people, you know, and I get that question. I had a client actually who didn't believe in him. And those questions that I had, you know, and he was so hard to just talk to. And I said, I'm going to kill him with love. Although he came, and me being a new counselor, you know, I felt fear, you know. God is not fear.
God is love.
He's love. So I loved on this guy, you know. Little gestures, you know, of kindness. Telling him I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job. Things that I wish people would have told me while I was fighting my addiction or trying to get clean, you know, little by little, you know, he just started coming around, saying a little prayer. I'm a firm believer of everybody in this world is walking around soulless, you know, just looking for love. It could be in the wrong places. It could be in relationships, you know. It's like what we feed our soul is what we're going to get, you know, in life. And like people just want to be happy.
And what do you think drugs feeds somebody's soul?
Hopelessness, shame, guilt, denial, isolation.
Sounds like darkness.
Yep.
Well, I mean, there's so many questions that I want to ask you, you know, but I'm gonna cut it to, you know, a question that's been lingering on for a minute in my head. But you know, from my interaction with you, I could tell that you're an incredibly like caring person, and you just confirmed it with this story. How does that benefit? I mean, how does that contribute to the work that you're doing, and how does it, you know, at times like hinder the work that you're doing?
I want to say that the programs that I went to, they're great. But they lack something, which was love, you know? Caring about the individual and looking at the needs. What is it that you need, you know? What do you need as an individual, and what can I help you with? How can I help you? I wish the first program they would have done that, but it didn't happen, you know? And I honestly did not see myself in this field at all. I was working, you know, with kids with disabilities, and I was a nurse, phlebotomist, you know? But when I was at my lowest point, you know, my mother ended up passing away, and
Sorry for your loss.
thank you. I relapsed. Nothing was wrong in my life. I had my kids, married. I had 3 careers going on. There was not one care in the world. I had a bank account. I had my car. No, nothing, and wrong place at the wrong time. I was 7-Eleven, saw somebody, asked them a question. 10 minutes, I had an ounce of dope. And I threw 10 years just like that. At this point, I hid it from everybody, and I got caught.
How long did it last?
A year.
Okay.
A year.
How did you get caught?
My husband. I don't know. He would always tell me, God's going to always expose you to me. And sure enough.
He had suspicions, I'm guessing, that something was off.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. He just, I think, was scared to tell me, but when he did, like, everything hit the fan, and he had an intervention, told my dad, took my daughter away from me, and they left. At this point, I'm fighting because I need to go to a rehab because I know he's going to take her away from me. And I wasn't scared. I knew there was going to be something, me doing this, and I did. And my counselor, he's dope. I think if it wasn't for that man placed in my life, I don't know if I would be here right now, I remember him telling me one time, he said, Melissa, every man has wanted something from you. He's like, I don't want nothing but your recovery. And as I think about it, he saw something in me at my lowest point. When I was just feeling so like ashamed, dirty, guilty, for just doing this. I was a leader at the church. I deceived my leaders, I was lying to them. I was horrible, not caring, That question I asked my daughter right now, I was like, if you were the person interviewing me, what message would you like for me to put out there? And she said, don't do drugs because you don't know how it's going to affect the ones you love. Since I got clean, it's going to be 2 years in September.
Going strong.
It's been a struggle. Just family. My daughter still doesn't live with me, and it's like, I thought my marriage was going to work out. It didn't. It's just a roller coaster. That's a real roller coaster right there, and, but what do? Just push on, one foot in front of the other, and just associate yourself with people that are going to lift you and carry you to the other side, because I can't imagine doing life with people who aren't going to support me or love me or want the best for me, I'm just happy that this job that I have now, I found purpose, and as I'm going through this divorce, I said, I don't want to work with men. I don't have nothing for them. But they have like a little porch, in the front. And I remember I'm just rocking back and forth. And I was like, God, why? Why men? Why? And I felt so bitter in my heart, so ugly that I said, I hate it here. As I did my onboarding there, it was the little things that made me change my mind on why I want to be there, And it all started with like opening the door for me. telling me, you look beautiful today, Melissa. That was weird to me, you know? Just doing the right, they bring me breakfast. It's just what I put out is what I'm getting in return, you know? And it's a genuine, like, thank you for what you're doing for me. And in return, like, I just want to be a blessing to you, you know?
That's powerful.
And I love it. What I do there, though, is I encourage the men, go to school, get a career. You're going to come out of this. If I did it, you're going to do it too. And I am so excited that they are so empowered by just the thought of doing something different with their life. Like, there's that sparkle in their eye, you know, just, I'm ready to live life. I want to do something different, and they're doing it, you know, and I am so proud of them for even giving themselves a chance.
How important do you think finding one's purpose is on their road to recovery?
That's the key to success right there.
Couldn't agree with that more.
Like, you can get a local job, but is that going to be a career for you? What are you going to bank on, you know? Education for me, I think, was really important. I always wanted to go to school. I didn't know for what, but I knew that it was important.
Mm-hmm.
I can leave that for my kids to follow, you know? They can't say, Mom wasn't drug addict, but she went to school, you know? It's the only thing I can leave them, but hopefully they could follow in the steps, you know, and want to do better for themselves.
How did overcoming, or how did going through your relapse prepare you for the challenges that you're facing today?
Repeat it again.
How did that experience of your first relapse prepare you to deal with the difficulties that you're facing today?
I made really strong connections. I knew that alone I couldn't do it. Absolutely not. But I knew with the right people on my corner to push me to the other side, I was going to go far. And I keep a small circle, but I know that if I introduce you to this circle, they mean a lot to me. Kennedy, amazing man.
Shout out Kennedy. We love you, man.
Thank you. Amazing man. And even when I met him, you know, at the program, I always thought, man, this guy just has so much wisdom. Like, what are you doing here?
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing here? I don't get it. But it took, you know, they did a balloon release for his son. My mom had passed away, and the way I grieved my mom was I didn't really not care. I didn't process it normally. Not a tear. It turned into anger, you know. I was angry deep down inside. I hadn't cried, you know. It's been, 4 or 5 years, and they did this balloon release for Kennedy's son, and I wasn't even trying to cry. The tears would just not stop. And in my mind, I'm like, something's telling me pray for him. And I'm like, no, there's no way. I'm battling within myself. But I know that I need to be obedient, you know? And I don't know why. But I do know that I was fighting everything in me. Everybody's giving him a hug, and I'm just crying. And it comes to my turn to give him a hug, and I just start praying for him, you know? And he goes, sis, thank you. I needed that. My dad's a pastor. And I was like, oh, God, thank you, you know, for allowing me to just do this, you know? From there on, it was a connection that, like, I trust that man so much, you know? He's such a good man. And through our addiction, we just kept accountable to each other. I told him, Kennedy, I need you. You better not fall, bro. Like, I need you. He's like, I'm not. I'm going to be right here. And you know, when you meet people and certain people just talk a good one. But till this day, you know, he's been there for me. And he's kept his word, you know. And I thank him for that. He kept me accountable, you know, with my counselor, my sponsor. I met so many beautiful people that I could count on right now and say, hey, I need a favor. And they are willing to do it. You know, and sometimes the people that you meet, you least expect, are going to be there for you more even than your family, you know? Which, that sucks, but I'm glad I met them.
Well, God does his thing, you know, in an interesting way, right?
Yes.
What bit of wisdom would you give somebody who's had experience being clean, who's had time, you know, similar with your case, who's had time being clean and then relapsed and now is back to the way it was before? What advice would you give to that person for them to come out of, you know, this pit that they didn't think that they would fall into again?
You're worth it. You matter. Even with mental health, you know, you were designed for a purpose. There was no mistakes. There's a purpose and a plan for your life. When you figure it out, life is going to be so much easier. But you have to tap into the source and just give yourself a chance. Life is so much better on the other side and
On the sober side.
On the sober side. You know, the relationship with my kids is not the best, but I want them to see that I'm trying. It's hard. And love always wins.
Love always wins.
On the sober side. Yeah, that's what I would say.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. It's been hard to hold the tears back, to be honest, but I appreciate you sharing in depth about, you know, what you've gone through and the wisdom that you gave us today. So I'm grateful and humbled for the wisdom that you shared with me. So thank you
for having me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.